Howdy, everyone. All right, so like I've just talked about a second ago, here's the opening for my oil dipstick access, and here's the cover. So now I need to make up a hinge. Now, the plans show just a simple piano hinge. Actually, I can show you that real quick. Here it is here. So this is just a side view. This is the cowling here. This is the cowling here. You've got this door with a simple piano hinge and an attach mechanism. Now, I do not want to do that for many reasons, and I'll get into those here in a moment. But for now, I just need to figure out how I'm going to hinge the door to the cowling. So what I have seen in the past, just looking around real quick on the internet, you can buy a hinge that sort of looks like this. I know this is not the best drawing, but imagine that this is the cowling here. Again, this would be a cross section, and here's the opening for the oil door. There's a hinge here that has this long bent piece, and that has a leg on it that attaches to the door. So this whole thing will swing down, and the door will come down and lay across the opening. I understand that they make and sell these like at Aircraft Spruce and different places like that, but I've seen people on the internet make their own, so I am going to try to make my own. So here's what I've started with so far. Let me move some of my trash out of the way here. So this is what I have so far. Try to unclutter this background a little bit. This is just a piece of scrap. This particular piece is 25, I believe it's 25 thousandths thick. It might be a little thin. I haven't decided yet if I actually want to use this. But anywho, all I had done with this was I took a long length of this aluminum, and I did this initial curve here. I just hand bent it. It's really easy to do because it's so thin. I just hand bent it around a piece of pipe. I think it was 1-inch pipe. Had the pipe in a vise, had it sticking out beyond the edge of the vise, and basically just wrapped this around it and bent it. And then I measured basically the thickness of the hinge. So this is the hinge I'm using. This is the nice extruded stuff. This extruded hinge, the hinge knuckles are all one piece. They're not bent around to form the knuckles. They're actually part of the hinge all the way around. I had some of this scrap, so that's what I'm using. You can see the part number there. So this leg here is basically the same width to fit the hinge, like this. And the same on this side here. This leg, if you will, is also bent so that it will fit the hinge. Now the shape of this, you can see how it's bent, and when I get this mocked up on the cowling, you'll be able to see it better. But the hinge itself has to mount this way, right? It's got to be flat underneath, and of course, imagine the other hinge half will be here where my fingers are. So this is going to mount underneath here, actually in this fashion. So this would be the back half that mounts up underneath, and then this would be the half that mounts to the door. And then coming off of that, this will be riveted to that. Sorry, I'm fumbling around trying to work one-handed here. So then this will mount to that hinge up underneath, and then of course the door will mount to this flange here. So if you can imagine, if this was hinged, this would be with the door, this would be with the door closed, and then you would swing the door open. So as far as the shape goes, you can see how the bends are made. Those have to be bent in that fashion. But this curve here, the actual bent curve, how big around does that need to be? Can it be a smaller bend? Can it be a bigger bend? I'm not sure. I'm not there yet. This just seemed to work because I had that 1-inch pipe laying around. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to mock this up a little bit on the cowling. I may go ahead and lay out the holes and go ahead and rivet this together. That way I have more of a solid piece. I'm not there yet. Let me figure out what I'm going to do next, and I'll be back here shortly and talk to you guys in a second. Howdy, everyone. All right, so I'm going to try to do some videotaping here real time. And as always, I'm sure this audio is going to suck, but I'll try to yell so that you can hear me. On another note, I am looking into microphones. So I'm hoping I can land a wireless mic. So when I have stuff like this set up in the video camera, I can work freely and you can still hear me. But that's potentially coming down the road. So what I was talking about, of course, is getting this hinge made for the oil access, the oil dipstick access hatch. So here's the bracket that I've been working on, and I talked about this just a second ago. And all I've done since then is drill these holes. I put 7 in. I've used 7 because, like I said, this material is 0.25 inches thick. No, that's wrong. Wow. It's 0.025 inches thick, so it's pretty thin. And I wanted a decent amount of support, and I also didn't want the pillowing between the rivets. So I wanted, rivets close enough together to keep this structurally sound and try to eliminate some of the waviness in this thin piece. So I've done that on this flange, and I've also done it on this flange. And the flange that matches the hinge itself, the leg that matches that is this leg here. So this leg will be for the door. This leg is for the hinge, and I've got the hinge here, and I've already countersunk one side of the hinge, and that's because this will get mounted. How does this get mounted? This gets mounted, let's see, this goes here, so this goes like that. So that's how the hinge will get mounted, and I don't know if that will show up, but the countersunk side is here. And if you can imagine with the cowling in place, the flat side of the hinge, right? This flat side here, not the side where the knuckles stick out, but this flat side here needs to be up underneath the cowling. It needs to be flush underneath here. So this is going to mount roughly like that. And then the hinge for the door itself is going to get mounted like this. Those will get riveted together. And then the door will be riveted this way. The door will be riveted to the hinge like that. And then again, if you look at the actual hinge that I'm holding here, and you can see roughly the top of the cowling, right? So this will lay, see if I can explain this. This will lay like this, and then it will hinge open and closed. I hope that makes sense, but it will as I get to it. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and rivet the actual hinge to the bracket. And then I'm going to try to figure out how I am going to position this assembly to the cowling and the door to the assembly. So I got two moving parts. This can be put in the cowling. You know, there's room to work, right? And then the door itself is also has to be positioned on the assembly so that obviously when everything is shut, the door lines up with the opening. So first things first, let me get this riveted.